All right, gentlemen, alongside Shane Kelly and David Pagnotta, Irfaan Gaffar here with the fourth period. We call this segment Dirty Data, and let's touch on the Vancouver Canucks. A team that has really been up and down this season, Shane, and we'll begin with you. And what do you make of this Vancouver Canucks team when you watch them, and what do the numbers suggest about where in reality are they?
They're kind of all action in both good ways and bad, right? I mean, they're one of the better offenses at generating scoring chances, at transitioning the puck with control. They got a pretty good power play. There's a lot offensively to like from this group. Peterson has just found his game again and been amazing, frankly, one of the best forwards in the league. The problem is, everything that they create offensively, they give that back and more going the other way. They are just below Anaheim in terms of expected goals against. They can't seem to stop the opponent from doing exactly what they're doing offensively back to them. They get killed in the transition game. Even Quinn Hughes is suffering a little bit there. So to me, this team is kind of destined for that mediocrity treadmill where they're going to have some runs where everything's going in and they win 3-4 in a row because they can score 8 goals on any given night, but they're also going to have runs where you look and you see 5-1, 5-1, 5-1 losses over and over again.
Yeah, the one bright spot, I mean, there's a few bright spots. The fact that Bo Horvat's got 20 goals so far on the season. But the other highlight is really the resurgence and reemergence of Elias Pettersson. 32 points so far on the season. He's on pace for 101, which would certainly be a career high for him. But the fact that he's putting up this type of performance has been really overshadowed by the struggles of the rest of this team. If this team was doing well and Elias Pettersson is continuing his pace for 100 plus points, that'd be getting national attention in Canada, and it's not, because again, overshadowed by the inconsistency of this team, the trade not requests, but the unofficial trade requests of some of their players, the uncertainty of the contract with Bo Horvat. All of that has masked the fact that Elias Pettersson is having a career season, which is unfortunate certainly for him. But a lot of these players that we mentioned, the Brock Boesers, the Connor Garlands, both of whom would welcome a trade. Tyler Myers' name out there. Bo Horvat, what the heck is going to happen with him, Irf? These players are out there. They're getting headlines for different reasons. I'm going to shift the tide, Irf, and ask you how you see some of these potential movements playing out. And are we going to see a number of different moves happening this season for this team?
Well, we'll start with Elias Pettersson. The only reason he doesn't get any attention outside Vancouver is because he doesn't play in Toronto, and I'll just stop there. But as we keep this thing moving forward, look, the Brock Boeser saga last weekend was a little bit. I mean, it was a disaster by all accounts, and I think the trade request that didn't really happen, but maybe a change of scenery now is kind of what both parties are saying. That's probably going to happen. But look, guys, right now, it's hard to make deals in the National Hockey League. Brock Boeser's got a pretty large cap hit for the next couple of seasons. Teams don't want to take on that type of salary, and the Canucks don't want to retain salary. So where that goes over the next, couple months here as we head into the trade deadline, that one remains to be seen. But we definitely know that Brock's agent has been making calls to different teams. I think it's at least 10, maybe even 12 teams right now in the National Hockey League to try and find a better fit for his client and for Brock Boeser. That doesn't mean that Brock Boeser doesn't want to stay a Vancouver Canuck, for the entirety of his contract, but the change of scenery for both parties, I think it's a good thing. Now, for their captain and Bo Horvat, look, dude's got 20 goals. He's having a ridiculous season, but are they going to be able to afford him? And that is the, whatever number you want to put it, $1 million question for the Vancouver Canucks. They decided to sign JT Miller before the season started. Did that piss off Bo Horvat? Absolutely. He's the captain of this team. He's a guy that is heart and soul Vancouver, that wants to remain a Vancouver Canuck. Like I said before, in all reality, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Canucks to do that. Couple more players. Connor Garland, if they could move him right now, they would. And Tyler Myers. That's going to be an interesting one to see what happens as we continue here over the next couple of months, guys.
The salary to some of these players, you mentioned Brock Boeser, $6.5 million AAV, $6 million AAV for Tyler Myers. He's got a 10-team no trade as well. More difficult to move him. But with respect to the captain, Bo Horvat, Shane, I want to ask you, 20 goals in 26 games. Realistically, how sustainable is his goal-scoring spurt this season? Are we looking at A 40-goal campaign, a 50-goal campaign? Is he going to exceed that? What do the numbers suggest in terms of what his ultimate final tally will be in terms of lighting the lamp?
Well, there's, every time you talk about a player who's doing something that they've never done before, the analytics models we use are going to say that's not likely to continue because there's no evidence that you're capable of this. This happens a lot with really young players. You see it all the time. A first overall pick or second overall pick comes in, lights the league up, and the models keep saying, oh, they're going to regress because we just don't have a sample size. We do for Bo, and this is outside of it. So I would say, he'll keep scoring in part because he's got Pettersson feeding him the puck, but he's doing well in the power play. Will he get 50? I would say unlikely. I mean, his shooting percentage is double and a bit his career average. Do players improve all the time? Absolutely. Do they turn into, one of the game's kind of premier top 2 or 3 snipers overnight? I would say, rarely. But does that mean he's not worth $8 million, like what Hintz got? Again, I think that's a separate issue. You can make a case for him as a 30-goal scorer being worth that cap hit.
And that number is certainly going to, I would imagine, exceed $8 million. That's something that they've been pressing on hard since the start of the negotiation in the offseason, and they really haven't gotten too much further along those lines. Irf, if you're looking at this player, and he is a 40-plus goal scorer this season, that's got to affect the value. And if this team is somehow still a few points out of a playoff spot by the trade deadline, do they teeter in keeping them and going for playoffs, or do they teeter and take the value of probably the highest that it'll be from a trade market side of things?
Well, I think if you ask people in this market that are fans, you try and get whatever you can for your top assets and start a rebuild. And if Connor Bedard is your guy, then you try and do things. I mean, we haven't even talked about Thatcher Demko yet, and I know he just signed his contract, but he's hurt for the next 6 weeks. But is he really safe here as a Vancouver Canuck? Like, what is the big plan that Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin have? And I think that's the biggest thing. But as we look and head towards the trade deadline, if they're a couple points out of a playoff spot, that was a goal heading into this season. It was playoffs or bust for the Vancouver Canucks, and that was a mandate from ownership all the way down. It was to try and make the playoffs. Now, whether that plan has changed and now it's geared towards a rebuild, I think one of the biggest things there is, can Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford convince ownership that that's the direction that this team wants to go, or are they going to try and make the playoffs just for a round or two?
Blow it up, finally.
Shane, I was going to ask you, because I saw you nodding your head there on the rebuild. So, Pettersson, JT Miller, presumably, because of that contract, Quinn Hughes, those are your 3 guys that you're sticking with. If those are your guys, what type of a rebuild can you have? Can you blow the rest of it up? Or is this going to be a rebuild on the fly kind of scenario?
Their cap is an absolute mess. They can maybe get some. To me, it depends on what they do with the cap. If they can move money without having to retain, that's a great place to start. But they need 4 defensemen. They need 6 forwards. It's not, you can find reclamation projects, but this is not a one-off season retool, no matter what.
Yeah, this is going to be something that we're going to be looking at in February, in March, in middle of April when their season ends and presumably is not in postseason play. This is something we're going to be talking about for a long time with respect to the Vancouver Canucks. Irf, I took your chair. Too bad. You'll get it back next segment. This has been Dirty Data. That's Irfaan Gaffar, Shane Kelly. I'm Dave Pagnotta, somehow hosting now here on the 4th period.